And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land. We are a part of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network. I'm Ethan Greenberg, along with my co-host Mike Rasinski, and joining us again, the voice of the Cavaliers, Tim Alcorn. Tim, how are you? And thank you for joining us.
I'm doing well, guys. Great to be with you again. I really enjoyed this the last time we had a conversation about the Cavs. And hey, what's not there to enjoy? A 60-15 as we chat tonight. Yeah, let's talk a lot of Cavs because it should be a great conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And also Mike from the UK joining us. It's about 12:30 midnight there. He's with us, our faithful friend, and he told us to let him know. Thank you for being along with us, Mike, and everybody else who's listening. So, yes, we were 40-10 last time we talked. So we're 60-15. So I think we're doing okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a dip in the road in early to mid-March, but I think the Cavaliers have found their footing. I think they're back on track. The last couple of games have been the Cavaliers that we've seen through 60-plus games, even though they lost in Detroit on Friday night. That's a Piston team that's playing very, very well. They certainly have a lot on the line night in and night out with the way the Eastern Conference playoff race is shaping up. You knew it was going to be a tough game, the back-to-back for the Cavs, and the Pistons hadn't played in a couple of days. They were rested. They were ready. They didn't have Cade, so be it. They came out and played hard. And the Cavaliers, I thought, afforded themselves very well and then had a heck of a ball game on Sunday against the Clippers. And now, with 2 days off and another home game, the first time since late February, it'll be interesting to see how they come out Wednesday night against the Knicks.
Are you happy just to be home and not to be on that road trip, just personally?
Yeah, it really it beats you up. It really does. It takes you out of any sort of normal sleep cycle, and you don't get a lot of rest. On that West Coast trip alone, Mike, we had 6 different flights on that 5-game trip: Cleveland to LA, LA to Sacramento, Sacramento to Phoenix, and just right on down the line. And then, of course, it concluded with the 6th and final flight, Cleveland to Portland, to come home. And we got home Wednesday morning about 7 o'clock, played San Antonio Thursday night. And what do you know? Flew right out after the game. It was a crazy time. It beat the guys up a little bit. And like I said, yeah, it does take you out of your rhythm. And it's been great to be home and just to sleep in my own bed for a few nights. No doubt about that.
Yeah, it's great to hear your perspective on it, because a lot of us, you live through that. You live getting on the plane, every other day with these guys too. And the rest of us just kind of speculate. It sounds like it's a really difficult time, schedule, but it's hard, I think, to really comprehend unless you're doing it. So it's great to just hear that perspective. Somebody that's with them doing the same schedule they are.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, didn't mean to interrupt you there. You're right. Especially when you're flying immediately after a game. I mean, I'm just a broadcaster, and I know I've expended energy, and my adrenaline's been flowing. I can't imagine what it's like for a player. So you got to shower and get ready and get your treatment and head to the airport and get on a plane. And anybody that's flown has known most people fall asleep on a plane, but it's not a restful sleep. You're not getting a good 7-8 hours sleep. And then you're landing and you get on a bus and go to a hotel. And so it really does. It disrupts every part of what would be a normal day. And it does beat you up, and it certainly takes its toll on the body, both mentally and physically, because you really need to work to get yourself back up in both areas. I know there were a couple of games on that trip. I was like, man, I got to call a game tonight, but you've got to bring that energy. And I'm sure the players feel that 10 times, 20 times fold than I do. So it was a bit of a rough trip. But I said with a lot of people, I would rather have lost the first 3 and won the last 2 than have it flipped. If you had come home on a 3-game losing streak, that would have made it real difficult. But I think the Cavs did well that back half with Utah and Portland, and obviously kept it going against San Antonio in that Thursday night game.
Yeah, definitely. So I was going to ask you, because we didn't get to this the last time, before we get really deep dive into the Cavs here, we were remarking, wanted to go back to your background, your Kent State days. all of us Kent Staters, Golden Flashes. Did you get a chance to watch any of the basketball while you were on the road while they were playing in the NIT? That was a heck of a performance.
I did not see them in the NIT, but certainly I've been following the Golden Flashes all season long. I'm a proud alum. Football can make you shake your head once in a while, but the basketball program has been terrific, and obviously the baseball program has been one of the elite programs in the country, and certainly in the MAC and in the country. So I didn't get a chance to see any of the NIT, but they afforded themselves very well.
Yeah, they definitely did. I'm so happy that I thought we lost Sendy. I thought we lost Sender off, and then they got reach and extension. So I was excited about that. And like you said, the football, that's a different story. Maybe they will get – Josh Cribbs has been campaigning for the job. I would not mind if Josh Cribbs got the head – if they decided to move on from Kenny, if Josh Cribbs got the job.
They literally couldn't do any worse.
Well, Josh Cribbs could be the head coach. Jack Lambert could be the linebackers coach. Right.
Yeah. I mean, oh boy.
Bring back Nick Saban. He's
there you go. GM. We laugh, but I mean, there has been good football in Kent State, and there's been some good players that have come out of Kent State. So, you've got to find that right fit, because it's a tough recruit, number one, and secondly, any coach that has had success there, and you can't blame them. They look to take it to the next level and they move on. So, but yeah, I follow the Golden Flashes no matter what the sport.
Oh, fantastic. So when you were at Kent State, you did your first two, you got your associate at Lorain Community College, and then you did your bachelor's at KSU. What was your specific degree in at Kent State? Did you have any specific professors that were like kind of inspiring to you, stood out in your memory?
No, that's a great question. And even though it was, now 40 years ago, I got my Bachelor of Arts in 1985, and telecommunications was my major with a business minor. And yeah, I had some great instructors and great professors. Bob West was a real pioneer.
I got him on the list. I had him as well.
Yeah, Bob West was a real pioneer in the broadcast world. His knowledge and his foresight as to what was to come. I remember him talking about satellite radio. There's satellites up there right now for television. They'll use it for radio someday. Like, yeah, okay. But Bob was such a pioneer. Gene Stebbins for several classes. Dr. Whaley, Ben Whaley, and his wife. So. Yeah, I remember those days very, very fondly. I love my time at Kent State. Very proud alum.
Tim, you're not going to believe this, okay? Are you Karnak? Are you psychic? Because I have on my notes, Mike, you can vouch for this. On my notes, who are the three professors I have listed on there?
Yeah, you have Bob West, Gene Stebbins, and Ben Whaley.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Ben, Professor Whaley was amazing. When I moved down to Virginia, I contacted him. I was like, do you know anybody down here in radio? And he did. And that's a story. But the fact, he was just amazing.
Did you have Dr. Kaminsky as well?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
I did
had
not.
A beard, and Dr. Kaminsky was good too.
Yeah. Yep. And Gene, I'll tell you this, because coming from the radio background, my first impression of Gene was not great. I think he was being tough. It was tough love. My dad and I went up to visit the campus, and we talked to Gene Stebbins, and he basically laid it out about how difficult it is to get into the radio business. And I always felt like it was a little bit harsh. It was real, but it was harsh, and way to try and crush a person's goals or inspiration at an early age. And I always felt like, well, I think I've managed to do okay. So
I think you've done just fine. And you're right. That is a fine line, because I'm not that I'm Gene Stebbins, but I fill that role as far as younger people asking me about the broadcast business and about the radio business. And you walk that fine line between being very truthful. It's tough. It's difficult. You may work in small market radio, and you may be doing jobs in small to mid-market radio that you thought you would never do. The Howard Sterns of the world are one in a million. These broadcasters that make it to the upper echelon. But
to your point, Ethan, you make a great point. You don't want to just squash somebody's dreams, but you also need to let them know he or she. I mean, there are a lot of women, great broadcasters, female broadcasters, but you need to let them know this isn't just going to be handed to you. It's a rough, tough business, and you've got to be willing to pay the price and do some things and work some long hours and maybe get a break or two, and it'll go right for you. But it's tough to work that equilibrium a little bit between being truthful and not just saying, hey, look at something else.
Right. Which is where I walked out of there. And I felt like that's always something that stuck out to me. It's kind of not the greatest thing, but I'm sure it was done from a good place and from someone who had seen it a lot. He's been in the business. He'd seen it all. So it's all good. But yeah, while you were at Kent, and again, we may have touched on this a little bit, not while we were on the podcast, but what were some of your favorite spots around Kent? Did you have any favorite, restaurants, local watering holes in the wall?
Well, if you're talking Kent, you're talking watering holes.
Okay, all right, possibly, yeah.
I have to admit, I don't know how many of these would even exist anymore. Like I said, I graduated 40 years ago. Robin Hood was a big hangout.
Yes, that was there while we were there, Mike.
Yeah, it's not there anymore, though, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh man, I had some great nights at the Robin Hood, most of which I remember. Ray's. I mean, the place is Ray's, man. You got to go to Ray's. Stuffed Mushroom was a place that I used to venture to. There was a pizza place, the Loft. Used to go to the Loft quite a bit.
Yes, we used to get the cheap pizzas on Tuesday or Thursday night. We would get the pizzas. So at that point, when we were there, I think, Mike, it was like $4.25 for a cheese pizza or a pepperoni pizza.
No, listen, great memories, and you don't realize it as you're going through it how much college shapes you. The relationships. Getting up early in the morning for a class that maybe you don't want to get up for, studying for an exam, and whatever the case may be, it does prepare you for the life experiences. And the thing that I really love about social media and the internet, and I'm not crazy about every part of it, but I love the fact that it has reconnected me with so many college roommates. At the time, those relationships were very transient. You left and you went your own way, and maybe once or twice a year for the next 5 years, and then it would just kind of fade. But it's fascinating how many college friends and even my roommate that I now keep in touch with continually. My college roommate lives in Dallas. When we go to play the Mavericks every year, I have dinner with my college roommate, and we just have a great time. So that is one good point of social media. It does allow to reconnect a little bit.
Well, we're proof of it, Mike, right?
That is also true. I think Ethan and I went 20 years really without and then before we reconnected for this show.
Yeah, over
That's
20
great.
years.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so it is amazing. But yeah, I really enjoy hearing your experience, to know that some of the same things we experienced at Kent State, you were experiencing.
Sure.
I mean, I know I told you, a while ago, my parents were there. I know my dad, he knew Ray's place and everything. His favorite pizza place was no longer there by the time I got there, called Montoni's. But nevertheless, so it's just that even from generation to generation, there were those shared experiences, going to Eastway and
yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh boy. Yeah, that is
great memories. Great memories.
And I even, my dad would take us up there. Mike, I mean, how long did your dad work at the university, or when did he start working at the university?
Yeah, so we moved to Ohio because my dad became a professor there, 88, and then he retired 2 years ago, so 2023, I guess.
Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, my dad would.
So here's the Tim Alcorn dark secret of Kent State. It is where I got hooked on All My Children, the soap opera. Everybody would hang out. See, you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have, right? So in the student center, we'd have a break from 12 to 12:50, or a lot of kids did, right? So you'd go up to like second or third floor of the student center, and they had this massive big screen television, which back in the early 80s, that was cool. And they would show all my children, right? What's everybody watching up here? Well, the next thing you know, you're like, oh, I got to see what happens with Susan Lucci. So all of a sudden, you're getting hooked on all my children while you're a college student.
So did you continue watching it after you graduated?
Well, I will neither confirm nor deny that. But I can name a lot of characters. I'll tell you that. So
it's easy to get hooked into those. My ex-wife, she watched a lot of the soap operas, and she would record them every day. And so when we were dating and then first living together and married, she would have recorded them. So I got hooked into them. I got hooked
right
very quickly.
There's a character or two that you're just drawn to. You're waiting for their scenes and you're waiting for their storyline.
Well,
and it
really
drags on and on and on.
I mean, professional wrestling is essentially a male soap opera, as it were. So yeah, I
there
get
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. Oh my goodness. But I was going to say, my dad would bring us up to basketball games in the late 80s. We were watching as they would come so close in the MAC tournament, but only to fall to, somebody up in whenever they played the game up in Toledo. But we saw like Bill Toole. Do you remember that
Billy
guy?
Toole, Bay High School.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a lot of the other names I can't remember, but that guy I remember. That guy I definitely remember. So, wow, that's great. I mean, thank you for sharing your Kent State stories with us.
Well, ABC would take the commercial break at 12:50, and there would be a mass exodus out of the student center because everybody was heading to their 1:00 class.
that is just amazing. Have you been back to the campus recently?
Been a few years. It's been a few years. One of our daughters, Diane and I have two daughters. One of our daughters was considering Kent State. So that was a few years ago, and we did the tour, and I was amazed to see, again, at that time, it wasn't 40, but, mid to high 30s when we did the tour, and just all the changes. But, man, it brought back great memories. And she became a Bobcat, and that's all right, too. She went to OU, so.
We had good memories at Ohio, down at Ohio U, right? We got to see a rare sight, a Kent State victory on the basketball floor at the Convocation Center.
That's right, we sure did.
That was the year, Mike. That was the year. I think they sent me down with a camera from the Stater. My pictures didn't turn out so good. I was not a photography person. But...
I mentioned my college roommate. That's what he did. He was a photographer with the Stater.
Oh, that's amazing. World. That is crazy. Well, speaking of commercial breaks, let's just take a quick pause here. We'd like to take a moment for our sponsors to get a word in. You are tuned in to Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land. And welcome back, everybody, to Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land, a part of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network. So, Ethan Greenberg, along with Mike Rasinski, and our guest, the voice of the Cavaliers, Tim Alcorn, friend of show. So, Tim, the last time we talked to you was right before the trade deadline. And the Cavs, as we mentioned in the open, they were 40-10 at the time, and we're thinking, how much better can this get? And then they go and they make the trade for DeAndre Hunter. And I guess, and you said to us as we saw you in Washington later that week up at the game against the Wizards, like they go from 40-10, all of a sudden they got better.
Better, yeah.
I mean,
they did.
And I guess so. Where do you think the team or went at that point? And how much improvement or how hard of an adjustment? It didn't seem like it was a hard adjustment for them to make, making that trade.
So a couple of things there. First and foremost, as you said, saw you guys in Washington. And I recall the morning after the deal was made, Kobe Altman, team president, flew to Washington. There was a huge Cavs event the night before in Cleveland that ran late, but he caught that first flight out of Cleveland in the morning to meet the team at practice and explain to them why this deal was made. Because, listen, Karis LeVert and George Niang were a huge part of the Cavs' success, and they were big aspects of the team winning and also the chemistry, the locker room camaraderie that this team has. So he wanted to go down there and look those guys in the eye and say, listen, I know this is tough for you to handle because you were close with those guys. Now, they knew the caliber of player they were getting in DeAndre Hunter. And Ty Jerome was his college teammate. They're best friends. They automatically connected when DeAndre joined the Cavaliers. But it was a difficult trade. But the transition, as you said, Ethan, has been so smooth. They've kept DeAndre in that bench role that he had in Atlanta, that he's so comfortable with. Can kind of watch the game and see what's happening. And then he's usually that first sub in with Ty Jerome. Ironically, the former Virginia Cavaliers are the first two off the bench for this Cavalier team when Mitchell and Mobley sit that first break in the first quarter. So, but DeAndre was the missing piece. Everybody in the NBA, including the Cavs, you're looking for that 3-and-D guy. You're looking for that wing player with length that can knock down shots and can play terrific defense. And DeAndre Hunter checks all those boxes. So again, that's not to take anything away from Karras and George, but they weren't that 3-and-D guy. And that's what the Cavs needed. So I think Kobe Altman at that point said, listen, I'm pushing all my chips in. We're 40-10 at the time the deal was made. We've got the nucleus here to make a deep run in the Eastern Conference, if not play until June in the NBA Finals. But there's that one piece. And so he went out and he got it. And you look at this Cavalier roster now, to me, I mean, you can nitpick here and there, but there really isn't a perceived weakness in this roster. They've got backcourt play with Garland and Mobley. They got front court play. They've got that length now with DeAndre Hunter. They've been through the battles the past couple of years with the New York loss a couple of years ago and then 2 rounds deep last year. So they've earned some battle scars. It's tough to go through it, but you have to learn how to win in the playoffs. So I think DeAndre Hunter has been outstanding, and I think his value to this team will really be shown when you get into postseason basketball.
Definitely.
So, yeah, speaking, I guess we should go straight into postseason basketball. It looks, well, I guess first of all, are you worried at all that the Cavs won't get the number 1 seed?
No.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not. I've been saying for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, they're going to be the number 1 seed. I just think they built enough cushions. They stacked enough wins that, listen, Boston's playing incredible basketball. Tip your cap. I mean, was it 10 of 11 now?
Mm-hmm.
They're playing great ball, but the Cavaliers with the 15 games to start and then the 12 in the middle and then the 16-game winning streak, those games count too. So, they built themselves that cushion. No, I don't see any way that they have a collapse where they lose the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and I think the magic number is down to 4 with seven to go. Yeah, so yeah, great point. All those wins early in the season, they count, and that's why you get them. So it looks like the 7 through 10 seeds are set. Maybe they may move around, but it's Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, and Chicago. Of those teams, do any of those give you pause that they could give the Cavs trouble in the first round?
Orlando. Now, I'll add a caveat to that. Not quite as much since Suggs is out for the year. But I go back to that first round matchup last year, 7-game war. Banchero is outstanding. Again, Wagner, the healthy Wagner, is somebody that gives the Cavs fits. I just think the world of Jamal Mosley as a coach. Again, Suggs being gone, I think tilts, if it is that series with the Magic, certainly tilts it in favor of the Cavs. They would have been favored anyway. But I'll tell you what, that's a tough matchup. They always give the Cavs a really difficult time.
Are you worried at all about, it seems like the one weakness, if I can call it, with the Cavs is when they match up with a team that's more physical than them, and they don't get the calls sometimes when a team is being physical. That would kind of even that out. Are you worried at all about that? I know Orlando plays that style of game sometimes. That's why I bring it up.
No, they do. And Mike, I think that's a fair point. I thought it was interesting the other night. because Kenny Atkinson was asked that exact question in his pregame press conference. And he said he isn't necessarily so much worried about physicality as he is competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
That, man, you've got to compete at 100%, especially in postseason, every single solitary possession, every single solitary second of a game. And a lot of times it's that competitiveness that'll get you a rebound. Those become 50-50 balls. And if you have the competitiveness and the fight, you'll win a lot of those battles. So I thought that was a real interesting take on Kenny's point, that it's not necessarily getting down there and throwing elbows and being physical. It's just competing for that rebound. And I think the Cavs, the last couple of games, especially the Clipper game on Sunday, I mean, LA just ate them alive on the boards when we played in LA at Intuit Dome. Zubats had a 28-20 game. The final stat in that Clipper game here, I think it was 45-44. It was within one rebound. So I'm not saying the Cavs have to dominate the boards, but if they can stay even with these teams, I think they'll be fine.
And how much of getting on the glass and winning those battles is specifically about the physicality level versus the effort level and being in the right position, having your defensive principles where you're not getting run off the ball and chasing all over the place such that when a shot goes up, you're nowhere near the backboard?
Great point. No, I agree with you on that. And especially in this long ball happy league where so many of the missed shots deflect long, right? So you can have your position underneath the basket or at least underneath the rim. And if that ball ricochets back out, everybody has to compete for the rebound. And I think that's what Kenny was alluding to, that, it's not just your bigs down low. I mean, if it's a short shot, usually the rebound comes up short. It's within a couple of feet of the rim. But if it's a long ball, we've all seen it. That thing will ricochet back out. And that's where you have to have 5 guys rebounding. And you have to have everybody giving that maximum effort that I alluded to earlier and that Kenny talked about. So I think the Cavs can hold their own there. I think Donovan has shown he can be a physical guard. He can box people out. His numbers the last few games, I know he had a real tough run there for a couple of weeks, but he seems to be playing the ball that we've seen of Donovan in the past. And he's rebounded. Evan has rebounded. Jared Allen, man, when he turns it on, I don't know, there seems to be a switch that goes off and he just dominates the game. And you're going to need that from Jared consistently throughout the playoffs. But no, I think they'll hold their own. I think they'll be fine. There isn't a team that I think, if we match up with them, they're just going to crush us on the boards. There's not a team like that I feel will handle us in that way.
All right. Continuing with the hypothetical. So round 2 hypothetically would be most likely Indiana or Detroit. Both teams have beat us this year. Does one worry you more than the other?
If it was one of those two, I would say Indiana.
Okay.
I think Detroit is where the Cavs were a couple of years ago. Young team learning how to win. Young team that hasn't felt that playoff pressure. Indiana made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's a team that flies under the radar. We talk about the Cavs in Boston, and I do think they're on a collision course. Don't get me wrong, but this Indiana team, especially since the calendar turned to 2025 in January, they've played very well. They've got guys that know how to win. Halliburton can play with anybody. Siakam, I think, is dangerous. Miles Turner. So if you're breaking it down to those two, I think Indiana could be a really good series if we end up stacking up with the Pacers.
And we'll actually see them twice to end the season here. I think 2 of the
How bizarre is that schedule?
Yeah, really.
We saw
any more bizarre than Boston playing Charlotte 2 games in a row to end the season?
Must be nice to be the world champs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim.
No. I totally agree with your point. I mean, you talk about a cupcake schedule coming down the stretch for the Celtics. I mean, it can't get any easier. But no, I was alluding to the point that the Cavs and the Pacers, it was back-to-back, if I believe. Indiana beat the Cavs at Rocket Arena, and then a couple of nights later, we beat them at Cambridge. We haven't seen them since. So you play a division rival twice in your last 3 games. To me, that was really odd in the scheduling.
Very interesting how the scheduling worked out there.
And then, like you said, it's probably the collision course with Boston. Are you concerned at all that Boston actually has a better away record than home record? And like you said, most likely we'll get the number 1 seed. I think they're 32-7 away and 24-12 at home, which is a kind of strange stat. But
so here's the deal: when it comes down to the Cavs and the Celtics, we'll do a whole show on the matchup because there's so many different ways we could go here. 2-2 during the regular season. I think the two teams match up very well. Cavs showed they can win in Boston, especially the huge comeback win. To me, the more impressive part wasn't that they were down 20 in the first. It was that they were down 17 in the third. Mm-hmm. They were down big twice. They got it down to 10 at the half. Boston pushed it back out. And I'll admit, I'm sitting there going, okay, we made our run. And then, man, to win that game. So anyway, Boston can win on the road. I mean, they've shown that. But we can win up there. So if they manage to grab one at Rocket Arena, it's certainly not something that I'm going, well, we can't win there. Of course we can win there. But we can. And Boston has shown that they're not invincible there. Mm-hmm. Again, so many different ways we can go down the road here if it's Cavs Celtics. So I'll reserve a spot for you guys. We'll do a whole show.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, we'd love to talk about it. There's so much to talk about that because you look at that team and you start just going, okay, what are they doing? They're just shooting bombs away from 3-point land. And what happens to them? They seem to they get up big like they did against the Cavs at home, and they have this impressive lead. And then they're just like, and you can come back on them. And it's amazing to me. Like, what happens there?
Well, that's the nature of the 3-ball league, right? If you're hot and you come out of the chute and you're knocking down threes, which they did in that first game, you're going to find yourself in a deep hole. The analytics say they're going to cool off at some point. And as you're sitting there down 20, you're like, yeah, well, when's that going to happen? Well, it did. And but to your point, Boston is just a flat out volume 3 team. I read something yesterday where their last 10 games or 15 games, 58% of their shots have been 3-balls. 58%. I mean, that's just an amazing number. Now, the ironic thing is they're not one of the top 3 or 4 teams in 3-ball percentage. So they missed their share, but it's just volume. They're just going to keep shooting it. So you got to weather those times when they get hot. I mean, when Brown and Tatum and Pritchard and the ageless Al Horford, I mean, when they're all knocking them down, you just got to weather that and realize at some point, law of averages and analytics say they'll cool off. And the Cavaliers have been able to do that. So I just think it would be a magnificent series. And to me, the importance of the number 1 seed is that if it comes down to a game 7, let's get that game at Rocket Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier because you were talking, Mike had asked you about the travel and how rough that is. And they win 16 consecutive games after the trade deadline, and then they lose 4 games in a row. And during the 4-game losing streak, a lot of the talk, there were different explanations or reasons. Do you have any one thing that you can pinpoint as to what was happening during that 4-game losing skid, that it was different than what was happening in the 16-game winning streak?
Yeah, no, and that's a fair question. I mean, the players were asked that. Kenny was asked that. You said one thing, but I'll give you a couple. Number one, I think, listen, they took their foot off the gas. They had a big lead for the number 1 seed in the East. As I mentioned earlier, they stacked those wins. They had that cushion. And now you're getting ready to go out on a long West Coast trip. And the 4-game losing streak started with the Sunday loss at home to Orlando. And I talked earlier, listen, they play us tough. And Orlando's in a heck of a battle in that play-in. So they came ready to go. And look, they beat the Cavs. So now you go out west. You're off a loss, but either way, you play the Clippers, again, hungry team. And I think the Cavs came in a little bit flat. The one loss to me, and this is just to me, this isn't Kenny, I really talked to him, but the one loss to me that bothered me on the trip was Sacramento, because they didn't have Sabonis, they didn't have Levine, and the Cavs were on the second night of a back-to-back. Don't get me wrong, but I still thought, okay, we can go in there, we can grab this one if they don't have Sabonis and Levine. But I didn't think the Cavs just came out with the intensity that they needed, or the competitiveness that Kenny alluded to earlier. I mean, it involves more than just rebounding. You got to compete at every level. So that one there was disappointing. Then you go down to Phoenix, and again, they just seemed a little bit listless. They didn't seem to have the energy level. And then the next thing you know, Durant's going off like he's back with OKC or Golden State. Like, oh, Lord, we've seen that movie before. So then you go to Utah, and I think in that second half is when they kind of refound it. Even though they were leading at the half, they kind of sleptwalked their way through the first two quarters.
Definitely.
But in the second half against Utah, that was the Cavalier team we were used to seeing. I think they just, not that they necessarily flipped the switch, but you know, Jared said after the ball game, we had him on the post game show that, yeah, we all huddled up and said, you know, we can't play this way. We've got to play better than this. And Kenny was very forthright about that as well. He said at one point, we're not playoff ready if we're playing this way. This won't cut it come postseason. So I think collectively they realized that. And then I said I'd mention a couple of things. Donovan just didn't play well. And again, I mean, I love Donovan as a leader because he stood up or sat down in his locker after the game and said, I'm not playing well. You know, I'll put this on my shoulders. So that one, you know, I thought Donovan, number one, showing those leadership skills and showing the, you know, the moxie to say, I got to play better. Now, you look at him the last couple of games, he lit it up in Detroit, even though the Cavs lost. That was the Donovan Mitchell we're used to seeing. And then, you know, he just stuffed the stat sheet on Sunday against the Clippers. So I think Donovan's now getting back, or is back, to what we're used to seeing. But those would be the two things to me.
Right. And some people were saying, oh, the things that people were saying, foot off the gas, becoming complacent. The other thing is the long season. Well, let me ask you this, because, and maybe obviously, as Mike said, we're not going through this, but the season has been 82 games since the 1967-68 season. Maybe I didn't have, because there wasn't all the social media and you didn't necessarily hear this. We didn't hear them saying, oh, they're tired, it's a long season, but it's still the same number of games. So I don't get the excuse.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a long season. You know, then you get into the whole load management. You know, the guys, you know, 20 years, 30 years ago, they played 75 games and all this. But it is a long season, and you do have to fight your way through it sometimes. And if you get down to that home stretch and you've built a big enough lead like the Cavaliers did, you want to use the word complacent, you want to use the term foot off the gas, whatever it may be. I do think they let up. Now, that also goes to show you the level that they were playing at through the first 60-plus games. I mean, they were playing an incredible level of basketball. So, again, analytics or whatever says you're going to have a little dip, and it happened. But it's funny, I had somebody text me today about, you know, when are the Cavs going to get out of this slump? I texted back, I don't consider winning 4 of your last 5 games a slump. You know, we're going to be just fine. You know, we have 2 days off, and now you get the Knicks, you get another home game. So I feel fine about this basketball team coming down the stretch.
Yeah, as Mike points out, having no home practice in over 6 weeks, not playing back-to-back games in the same city in over 5 weeks, this does matter. So, Mike, kudos to you. Good point there. Good point.
Great point. That's exactly right. I mean, you're in no sort of rhythm. You're in no sort of schedule. You know, no sort of regimen, if you want to use that term. I mean, it's just bouncing around from gym to gym, plane to hotel. You just don't have any consistency to it whatsoever.
You don't even have the same person coming to the room to pick up the towels every day, you know? You don't...
True. That's true. Right. Well, seriously, but I mean, you guys have been around athletes. It doesn't matter. High school, college, you know, NBA, they like routine. They want a routine. I get up at this time. I get my treatment at this time. I go to practice or shoot around at this time. You know, tip off is at 7:00. Athletes want routine. You know, football players, you practice Monday through Friday or Saturday, and then you play. I mean, they like routine. And when your routine is all thrown out of whack, it's going to affect you. It is.
So does the playoff routine will obviously be different. Is
Yes.
I imagine, I'm speculating that's a good thing for them. They'll have obviously a big break while the play-in tournament plays out. And then they can get into a rhythm of, playing every other day, not having to travel every day, but it will be different. Is that a good assumption that that's actually a good rhythm for them to get in, or is it just, does it even matter?
Oh, it does matter. No, and to your point, Mike, it is a good thing. It's a great thing because there does become a regiment to it. Here's when we travel, here's when we play, here's the practices. Even though you're traveling, you're staying in the same city for 2 or 3 days. So I think we mentioned earlier, Detroit. Now that's a short trip, but you'd go to Detroit, you'd be in the hotel for 2 or 3 days, you'd have a schedule there. So you're not in and out. So there's real value to that. Absolutely. Huge value. And that week off that you mentioned, that'll be big as well. Just rest their bodies and recharge a little bit.
Right. Now, you talked about Mitchell not being himself. The punching bags, on local radio, they love to. Darius Garland, Jared Allen are two of the usual guys to get beat up for any slippage in play. Darius, he got banged up in that game in New York against New York in Cleveland back in February. Is he, is his health, impacting his game at all? And then Jared Allen, there's the games when he has been, as you said, just dominant and a force. And then there's other games where he's not on the floor. So I guess the two questions there is, one, has Darius's health been an issue? Is that contributing at all to any of the regression to the mean? Or was he just were they just playing out of their minds, like you pointed out, talking about the record, that it's like, that was just like way above, and now we're kind of coming back down to norm? And then Jared Allen, sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle, but we can't have that.
Well, let's start with DG. So no, there's no health issue.
Okay.
With Darius Garland. He's healthy. He's fine. Again, I think there was some slippage in his play, just like there was with Donovan when we got into March. March's schedule was insane. I want to say there was 8. How many games? What would they end up going? 17 games in March?
Yeah, I'd have to count it here.
11-5. Were they 11-5 in March?
That sounds about right.
I mean, but so again, it's just the wear and tear. But physically, no, there's nothing wrong with Darius Garland. And I think he's having an all-star year. I think he's having a tremendous season. He deserved the all-star nod that he got. And I think there's times he literally has put this team on his back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so no, I don't think there's any issues with DG. I'm not saying that week off between game 82 and game 1 of the playoffs won't benefit him. Sure it will, because I saw one of those real deep in the weed analytic numbers the other day, but he's like 5th in the league in driving to the basket. So he drives and he takes contact, and he's not built physically like Donovan is. So he takes his shot. So I thought that was a pretty interesting number. And so, yeah, he'll he'll benefit from the week off once the regular season ends. Jared, I agree with you. There does seem to be times where he turns it on, and all of a sudden, I think the other day was that was the 2-point game in the first half, and then he had 27 in the second half. I mean, it was just remarkable to see the turnaround. So Jared can be a dominant player. Now, the other thing about that is, and Kenny Atkinson is the first to admit this, he's a maestro with matchups. And if he doesn't feel that Jared being on the floor is beneficial matchup-wise, Jared will sit if the other team's going small or the other team's going with a lot of wings. So that's often why you'll see Jared's numbers slip, or he's not on the floor in that fourth quarter. It depends on the matchup with whoever they're playing. So, and Kenny's been very open about that. I know he talks to Jared about that, and they're on the same wavelength. There's no issue there whatsoever.
Is Kenny going to be getting a "Let Him Meow" shirt like Jared?
How awesome was that?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Jared Allen is, first of all, he's a great guy. He's an amazing guy. He really is. And he has such varied interests outside the game of basketball. And for him to walk into that press conference with that shirt last night or Sunday, I thought it was just awesome. I thought it was fabulous. And I've gotten to know Jared a little bit, so I can see where the humor was in that. But he's a very deep guy, and he's an intellectual guy. And so sometimes you gotta read between the lines a little bit with Jared. But I love Jared Allen. Tremendous man.
Seems like it. He seems like the kind of person I could picture many of them, but sitting down with him just like seems like a great chat to have.
Yes.
About
voracious reader. He reads books all the time. And it can be about technology, it can be about history, it can be a drama. Yeah, he loves to read. Loves to read. Great guy.
I probably should do some more reading, but that used to.
Yeah. Stop listening to that sports talk radio. That's what you ought to do.
That's
all that plane travel. There's some opportunity for reading.
There you go. Yes.
Definitely. Now, another health question here recently. I know Ty Jerome did not practice today, and they're reporting he likely will not play tomorrow. Is this a precautionary thing? Hopefully.
Yes. Well, keep in mind, he will not play tomorrow. He is listed as out for the Knicks game, but he's getting work in. So it's not like he's just not doing anything for the last week. So I don't think there's anything there than what you just said. It's a precautionary thing. Keep in mind, he played one game last year.
Right.
So Ty Jerome has played more basketball this year than probably his AAU days. I mean, in high school and college, he didn't play 60 some odd games or whatever he's up to. So yeah, just give him a few days off and a few games off, and let him rest up, because he's going to be a critical part of the postseason run. Hopefully it'll be a deep run. And so there's nothing long term. There's nothing serious with Ty Jerome. I just think he plays so hard. He's a high intensity guy. In baseball, they may use the word high leverage. When he comes in, man, it's full throttle. I mean, Ty Jerome just never lets up. I love his intensity. So yeah, I think he's going to be just fine.
Oh, we got a question here from Mike from the UK. Who is your favorite player on the Cavs character wise? I don't know if that means this person's a character or got very good character. I'll translate. I'll let you interpret it and answer the question here.
Yeah. Well, it is a good question. First of all, I'll just say, and I'm not just saying it because you see this Cavs thing on my jersey here, that they are all high character guys. And I mean that sincerely. There's not a guy on the team that if this microphone wasn't or camera wasn't on, it'd be like, yeah, I don't want that guy. No, they're all really good dudes. They are. They're fabulous, high character guys. And Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey and Kenny Atkinson, they believe in that. That if you have a cancer on your team or a cancer in the locker room, it can disrupt everything. So they just don't allow it to happen. They don't bring those type of guys in. So I would just say they're all high character guys, and I say that sincerely. As far as character, Jared's a bit of a character. He is. He can elicit some laughs. The one that the players will always say more in the locker room and when they're away from media and everything else, and you wouldn't think so, but they say Isaac Okoro is hilarious. Now, I've seen it a few times, but they say once he gets away from cameras and gets away from everybody, I mean, he can crack anybody up. So I get that secondhand, though.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Speaking of, guys you want to keep, and we're just talking about Ty Jerome and knowing that, he's probably earned himself a hefty paycheck next year too. But on that note, the Cavs, with the trade, were able to get underneath the apron when they brought in Hunter. But now they face a situation where if some of these guys earn some postseason awards like Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, they come with bonuses, which actually pushes them possibly to the second apron. So would you rather, and there's nothing saying you can't sign a player just because you're in the second apron. It just costs a lot of money. And a lot of teams are have to get rid of some assets because of that. Would you rather have our guys win these postseason awards and push us into the second tier, knowing it may shorten our window, but they get the recognition they deserve? Or would you rather have them maybe finish second, so you stay underneath the
Come
apron?
on, man.
No, I would never say. I hope they don't win an award, because that's a huge accomplishment,
Yeah,
and that is something that nobody can ever take away from them. I know when I do a game, whether it's an opposing player or a captain, he's a 6-time All-Star, he's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's something that's on your resume forever. So I would hate to say he was a runner-up Defensive Player of the Year so the Cavs could get under the apron.
yeah. Get one more year of contention out of it.
No. So as many awards as these guys can rack up and pile up, I'm all for it. And then you let the bean counters and the financial guys worry about the apron and the contracts. I certainly think and believe the Cavs would love to have Ty Jerome back.
Mm-hmm.
He loves being here. As I mentioned earlier, best friends with DeAndre Hunter. What he has given this team this year has simply been astounding. Now, again, his agent will obviously have conversations, but I know they'd love to have him back, and they're gonna try to make that happen.
Yeah, luckily, Dan Gilbert isn't afraid to spend money either. So,
but that apron is really taxing. Pardon the pun.
Yeah,
but it's punitive. It's punitive, and the NBA has structured it that way so that you can't build these super teams anymore. And no matter how much of a multi billionaire you are, it's a punitive tax that you end up paying. So they'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think baseball needs to take a book out of the basketball playbook, because they can build dynasties, and like what we had last year, we had the Dodgers versus the Yankees, and I don't know, I'm kind of sick of seeing that. But the media market always seems to be that wants the two biggest markets they can to play in the championship series. So speaking of that, last year we had Boston and Dallas, which were, I was just looking it up, the 11th and 5th largest markets. If we go into, a Cavs versus Oklahoma City, it would be the 18th and the 26th largest media markets. Does that matter at all? I mean, the level of play you're going to get is going to be outstanding if that ends up being the finals. Do you think the larger cities care that it would be maybe two mid-market teams playing if it ends up that way?
I think if you have two great basketball teams playing in the NBA finals, people will watch.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. New York, Chicago, LA, all those Boston big markets. Okay. But if it's a great matchup, I know the highest rated game so far this year in the NBA has been the first Cavs OKC game. I mean, the ratings were just off the charts because both teams were playing so superbly well. And that was a great game at Rocket Arena. It came down to the final couple of minutes. I mean, it was electrifying, and people all over the country were watching. So, I'm not necessarily sold on the fact that if it's two small market teams, people won't watch. You look back the past couple of finals, you had Denver and Miami. I wouldn't say those were huge markets.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, Dallas and Boston last year, those are two decent sized markets, but you had Milwaukee and Phoenix a couple of years ago. Again, not huge markets, but I think fans will watch, and I think they'll become engaged if it's a really good series between two outstanding teams. And the further OKC goes, and I see them coming out of the West, I think they're really going to open some eyes as to how tremendous they are. They're an awesome basketball team.
Yep. And as Mike points out, that is their only loss to an Eastern Conference team was that game in Cleveland. That is, amazing what they have been able to do all season. How they've amassed such a record. And then the amazing drop off between the first team and the second team in the West compared to the East. It's kind of baffling when you look at it.
I agree. Although I will say, and again, I'm not saying they're going to beat OKC, but keep an eye on Houston. Nobody's talking about the Rockets. Nobody's talking to Dallas. Well, not that, but the Lakers after they got Luka from Dallas, and the Clippers could be difficult too, but nobody's talking about Houston. that team's pretty doggone good too.
Yeah, they took the 2 they took from us. That was frustrating. Sagoon, that guy, that guy. That's all I can really say about that. Um, Tim, we were just talking about getting to know the players and you're traveling with them, and I know that you're in a different position than reporters like our buddy Brian Windhurst. And where is the fine line between being a member of the media and knowing the players, being friendly with them versus like, hey, they're the players. I don't want to, kind of where's the line between being, hey, we're buddies, we're chums, and I'm a member of the media, etc.
Well, first of all, and I don't mean this in a negative way, in a derogatory way. So don't take it that way, and I hope your viewers don't take it that way. I'm not buddies with the players. I'm not. Number one, there's a huge age difference. But number two, respecting that line. That listen, my job is to call the games. Now we're friendly with each other. We see each other at dinners or breakfasts or on the bus or whatever the case may be. I think they know who I am. I know who they are. But no, we don't hang out together. And again, the age difference certainly has something to do with that as well. But the other part of that is, and Ethan, it's a good question. It also plays into the actual broadcast of the game, the play-by-play of the game. Believe me, I work for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They signed my paycheck. But if there's a bad play, I can't just try to sugarcoat it because at that point you lose credibility. So if Jared fumbles a rebound out of bounds or Garland throws the ball away on a rare occasion, but if it happens, you got to be forthright and honest with your audience. So I think it plays a part more there than it does in any other area. Just to call the game. Again, I lean towards the Cavs. Anybody that listens knows that.
Sure.
But also to say, they're not playing well. I think I said a couple of times on the trip, and they lack energy. They're listless. I mean, because you need to paint that picture for the listeners, and you try to do it in as an honest way as you possibly can.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to get your perspective, and again, I know that it's different than that of a beat reporter or someone a national coverage like Brian, because there was a lot of hullabaloo last week with those comments by LeBron on the Pat McAfee show.
Yep.
It seemed like it was some shrapnel that hit Windy when he was maybe a little, having his beef with Stephen A. But, just thought I'd ask about that. And around the NBA, what do you think about the melee in Minnesota?
Wow. That's unfortunate. It's really, it doesn't shine well on the league. Listen, and I love JB, and I think I said this on the previous appearance. I don't have anything negative to say about JB. I think he's a great coach and what he's done in Detroit, but they play on the edge. They kind of go not quite the bad boys, but they're playing that style. And JB has said, listen, we play on the edge. We feel that's how we need to be competitive. And they've got some guys that'll get physical. So you've got to be able to maintain your presence when you're playing them, to not let that get under your skin. And unfortunately, the situation in Minnesota, it escalated quickly. And, once it spills into the stands, that's when it really gets scary. So
Yes, absolutely.
I thought it was really unfortunate. The league's going to take a hard look at this, and I'm sure, we haven't heard the end of it yet. And
right, the suspensions came down. The suspensions were handed out today. Looks like Stewart got 2 games. Sasser and Holland each got a game. For Minnesota, DiVincenzo and Naz Reid also got they each got 1 game suspensions, I guess. And the reason that Stewart got 2 is that he was considered a repeated history of unsportsmanlike act. And that's kind of troubling. And
well, listen, they keep an eye on those things.
They do for sure.
And if there's a history, if there's a track record, the hammer will come down a little bit harder every single time. And so, and we were talking to some Detroit people while we were there for the game against the Pistons on Friday night, and he plays up to that edge. And it's going to be up to JB and the staff and the organization to say you can't take it over that edge, because the punishment will get more severe every time you do it.
Right, right, exactly. And how much, I guess, has the NBA changed in that way from like the 80s? You mentioned the bad boys, the 80s and 90s, where you saw all the physicality and some bruising going on there, to the point where it went to a lot more offensive minded. Is it the officiating, or is it just the way the game's being played, like you talked about earlier, with just everybody chucking up lots of threes?
Well, I think it's officiating because of the rule changes.
Okay.
They've really opened this game up. Whereas you mentioned, Ethan, you were allowed to knock guys around and play physical basketball, and no blood, no foul type of thing. And I mean, it was physical and it was hard. And I think, and it was a hard game to watch. When you were watching those just knockdown, drag out battles that ended up being 85 to 81 or 89 to 83, you're like, man. And I think the NBA saw this and said, this is tough not only for people to watch in arenas, but it's tough to watch on television. So let's open this thing up. These guys are world-class athletes who can run and jump and get up and down. Let's showcase that rather than having this become a half-court knockdown brawl every night. Well, to do that, you had to relax the rules. Right. And had to strengthen the rules to say you can touch these guys, so now they're flying all over. And then obviously the analytics with the 3-ball, that's played a part in it. So, again, here's another whole show we could do about the NBA, but yeah, I do think they're trying to get that big time physicality out of the game. I think they have done that. I mean, you have some here or there, and you'll see it in postseason. It'll get a little bit tighter, and that's just the nature of playoff basketball. But for the most part, teams are now averaging 110 to 120 points a game. And I think fans want to see that. I think viewers want to see that. They like offense that goes up and down the floor, so that these guys, it's entertainment, and they can really entertain the fans.
Right, and lots of free, dollar off McDonald's fries over 100, free large fries with 120, right, Tim?
Well, I'll correct. $2 large fry over 100.
Okay, okay.
Yes, but free large fry if it's 120 or more.
Yeah, that is crazy, and a
lot of free large fries going out this year.
It has been, and then so then the lengthy reviews.
Good question.
I mean, that's got to be something where you're happy maybe they get a call right, but at the same time, it kind of mucks up the game and the flow of the game.
I mentioned this the other night. I don't know if you heard it, that Kenny Atkinson, following the San Antonio game, I believe it was the Thursday night game.
Yes,
there was all sorts of stoppages and reviews. And I was really surprised. I never really had that conversation with Kenny, that he said, he goes, I'd abolish it. I would take it out of the game. I would just live with officials are going to make some bad calls. Listen, coaches make mistakes, players make mistakes. He thinks it interrupts the flow of the game so much. These lengthy reviews that Mike asked about, the fans are sitting there going, okay, now what are they looking at? Now, the broadcasters, same thing. So I don't and Kenny readily admitted, he goes, I'm in the minority. He goes, but I would go that step. Now, I don't think they will, but I certainly think they're going to try to find a way to streamline it. You got a stopwatch or something. You've got to make your call by this amount of time. Because for the fans sitting there, the fans listening on the radio or watching on television, you're getting antsy. Like, just make the call. And if it was a good game that was going back and forth and a lot of rhythm and a lot of action, and then all of a sudden you're just sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes. And think about what that does to the players too, right? You're in a flow, and now you're like, well, come on. I mean, it can't be that hard. So, and again, I say that facetiously, because now they're getting to the point where if that ball barely grazed a fingernail, it's like, okay, and they got these cameras that just zoom in, but how long are you going to take to make that call? And I think it's something the NBA will look at.
Right. Now, what do you think about the Grizzlies' decision to fire Taylor Jenkins?
That was shocking. And again, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but when you're in the midst of a playoff push, and Taylor Jenkins is highly regarded as a head coach. He won't be out of work long once we get into the off season, but that was stunning. So there's a deeper story there somewhere that perhaps will get reported once we get to the end of the season. But to just say, we're going to do this now with 9 games left, something seems really odd about that.
Yeah, that's very odd. Mike, so before I transition to one other thing, Mike, do you have any further last Cavs question, or do you have any more Cavs questions for Tim?
No, I think I'm just waiting for your last question because that's what I'm interested in as well.
Well, I don't know which one of my last questions. I've got multiple last questions here, Mike.
All right, well, I will ask a question, and maybe it's your same one. But Tim, this is actually Ethan's question he came up with, but I was interested in what does your off season look like? Once we still have the playoffs to get through, and hopefully in midsummer you'll get some time off for training camp. Do you actually get a big break? Do you get to go take some vacations or?
Yeah, I do. It's so strange though. The past couple of years, when you play that final playoff game, it is like running into a mountain. It just so suddenly. I always tell people, when you're at the airport and you're going down the walking sidewalk, and then you get to the end and it's jarring. Like, yeah, it's so jarring at the end of the year, whenever that final game is. So I'm hoping it'll be in June this year. But
right.
But yeah, it takes a while just to kind of get back into that normal rhythm of being around the house every day and getting back into a normal sleep pattern and all that. But there is time to kind of slow it down. We'll take, a few weeks just to kind of relax and so forth. And then the Cavaliers come, mid-July or so, we start ramping up for the next season insofar as getting all of our affiliate stations set and making contact with them. Past couple of years, actually, I've been fortunate enough to do some baseball. I did some Guardians baseball on their network. So yeah, but I'll definitely get some traveling in and get some R&R in. There's no doubt.
So you actually don't get as much time off as, like, in my mind I pictured. You have a pretty short off season, actually.
It is, yeah, because as part of the Cavs radio network, the Audioverse, there's a lot of affiliates out there. There's about 20 affiliates. So there's a lot of contact made with those affiliates, to the point of going out and meeting with them wherever they may be in the state of Ohio. I do a lot of public appearances in the summer to go out and speak to groups and whatever the case may be. That's certainly something that I enjoy doing, and it's part of my obligation with the Cavaliers, and I'm fine with it. I love to do it. So, and there's charitable work that we do during the summer. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are taking place that you just don't walk away and say, I'll see you again in September.
Are you going to go to Tom Hamilton's induction into the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown?
I am. I'm just incredibly honored to be there. Hammy and I, we share a lot of barbs back and forth on the air, and believe me, it's all in fun. I've actually had listeners like, what's the deal with you and Tom? It's all in fun. We're great friends, or at least he's a great friend of mine. But no, I'm incredibly honored. I will be in Cooperstown with the Guardians group as Hammy gets inducted, and I'm thrilled for my friend because it's just an extraordinary honor, and one that's so richly deserved for Hammy. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best that has ever done it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was commenting, I don't know if you caught it, I posted on Twitter because somebody remarked about listening to Hamilton watching the game on the Guardians package, and I decided I'm going to get the Guardians package, and I saw, I can listen to the audio feed, the radio feed on the video, and it syncs right up. I'm like, did they do that for the NBA League Pass? If they do, I think I'm going to have to sink some money into that next year so that I can listen to Jim and Tim, on the NBA games. Not that I mind, listening to the guys on TV, but just you and Jim, as we've talked before, you have such a good relationship, and it's not only just a good call of the game. There's some fun to it. It's entertaining and it's enjoyable. Have you had a chance to watch any of the Guardians games? What are your early thoughts?
I saw most of the opener because we
Okay.
played that night.
Right.
So I saw most of the opener. Didn't see much of the game because then they had the off day. Didn't see much
Right.
of the second game, and then Sunday again. I want to say it was Sunday.
Yep.
We had the afternoon game and they played, so I didn't see much of that. So I haven't seen a lot. Going to try to stay up late tonight and catch most of the action. I'm a huge Guardians fan, as I said. Incredibly honored when they asked me to do a couple of games a year. I love doing it. I'm a member of a season ticket holder group. So I get down to the ballpark. That's another thing I do during the summer.
Oh,
I
fantastic.
get down to the ballpark quite a bit, and I just become a Guardians fan. I have a beer and a hot dog, man. I love watching baseball, calling baseball, and I think they're going to be fine this year. I think they're going to be absolutely fine.
Oh, that is great. I know last night not so good. Did you find out from Tanner Bybee what establishment to avoid if you're in the Kansas City area?
I'll leave that to Hammy and Rosie.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. All right. I got one more question for you here, Tim. You've been so gracious with your time, and we sincerely appreciate it. In all the years of covering high school sports, is there any athlete that you covered that you said, wow, this player is amazing, but then they just never reached what you might have thought their full, their potential height would be, figuratively speaking, not literally height, figurative height. But yeah, is there just anybody you're like, wow, this guy's great, and then just whatever happened to that person?
It's interesting. On the other side of my computer, of the camera that I'm looking into right now, you may accuse me of being a hoarder. I have every single score sheet of football, basketball, baseball, softball that I ever did high school sports wise. I've got stacks of them. Now they're organized, so I can find them. I'd have to go through those sheets. That's a great question. The highly touted guys that or girls, that didn't make it. I'll have to kind of put that one in my memory bank, and the next time we get together, we'll start the show with that.
Okay, all right, that is fair. That is fair.
Because I was going to answer the direction I thought you were going. The greatest athlete as far as the buzz was Jimmy Jackson.
Oh wow,
Jimmy, of course, went on to Ohio State, and I called Jimmy as a freshman when he played at Toledo Maycumber.
Okay.
And no streaming, no internet, no Twitter. But the buzz was already around the state of Ohio about this kid named Jackson who was only a freshman, and he's already gotten 75 Division I offers. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. There's no video of him. And went up to do a Maycumber game and was blown away by the skill level of Jimmy Jackson. So he lived up to the hype. He was just an incredible player. He was the LeBron James of Ohio before LeBron. Everybody in the whole state knew who Jimmy Jackson was. It was incredible. But I'm going to think about the question you actually did ask. That's a good question.
I mean, I start to see names of people that I covered when they were playing in high school. Someone's who's I think she's the head coach of Maslin Perry now, Beth Sternberger. I'm like, I remember calling her games. Her and her twin brother or brother who was they played at East Canton. I'm like, I know who this person is. Oh my gosh, I'm old.
Yeah. It also goes to show you, and again, I don't want to hog your time either, but it goes to show you how big of a leap it is. And I'm not taking anything away from high school athletes because I love high school sports. I still do it. But how big of a leap it is to get from an elite high school player to a Division I college athlete, no matter the sport. And then that leap to the next level. Right. It's huge. It's huge. Yep.
It is just amazing there how much that leap is. So, wow. I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah. All Cavs talk too. That's a good Cavs session.
Yeah, we had a little Guardians in there too,
and Kent State.
And Kent State, yes.
That's right. We always try and mix it up just a little bit here, Tim. So, Tim, up next, the New York Knicks and the final 7 games of the regular season here. Buckle up, right?
Yeah, well, I mentioned the Pacers twice in the final 7 games. Got the Knicks twice as well will be in New York next week. So a real strange final 7 games. But again, I'm more than comfortable saying I think the Cavs will be the number 1 seed, and then you'll rev it up for what should be a fun postseason run. And as I said, I foresee the Cavs and the Celtics just knocking heads for the Eastern Conference Championship. I think that's who it's going to come down to.
Okay. All right. We got one question from our friend Mike. He wants to know who you taking all in the men's March Madness basketball tournament. You got the Auburn, Florida matchup, Houston and Houston and Duke. Final 4. Who do you got out of those 4, if anybody?
I just think Cooper Flagg, if you got the best player on the floor, which I think he's the best player on the floor in this tournament, I'll tilt slightly towards Duke.
All right. That is fair. I'm kind of leaning that way myself as I'm trying to look at these things. I'm going, I don't know. Houston's tough, but I don't know if they've got enough firepower. And we shall see.
You guys will hate this, but in my brackets, I pick 0 upsets. I go with the higher seed.
Wait, chalk? How do you go with the higher seed? The chalk? Is that what they're saying? The term?
Yeah. So, but now I got all 4 Final 4 teams, but now you got to pick one. I picked Houston, but I like Tim's point. You got the best player. That's hard to argue against. So
it really is, and that their center, number 9, and I can't get the name. I know it's with an M. It's something with an M-A, some vowels, maybe a Batman symbol in there. I'm not sure. No, he's good. And then, of course, Con Knipple. I just like saying the name. I'm 12, Tim. I'm 12.
There you go.
Good way to end the show.
There you go.
There it is. All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming in again. We appreciate and value your time. This is just a pleasure. This is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us.
I enjoyed it last time. Love being on again. And I'm serious. Let's book one before the Boston series if it comes down to that. And we'll just really go deep into the weeds with the Cavs and the Celtics if that's what ends up being the case.
Hey, count me in. Oh, wait, here it is. Come on, Malak. Yeah, I think yeah, I'm going to have to hear that a few times. Oh, let me share this with you, Tim, because of the name pronunciation. I came to the end of my season of calling basketball at Randolph-Macon. It ended in the Sweet 16. And I'm meeting the parents of players, and I'm talking to them. Oh, we're such and such as Brielle's parents. I'm like, oh, okay. Brielle Bachman. I said, wait a second. What's the last name? Bachman. It's Baughman. No one told me it was Bachman. I was pronouncing it Ballman. All season long, I get this wrong, and no one tells me.
Well, now you know for next year.
It happens.
I will get it right for next year. I was mortified.
So here's my broadcasting tip. I'll give you one tip before we close it out.
All right.
So if I'm ever in question about a player's name, I'll go right to the player. And I'll say, how do you pronounce your last name? And they'll say, some people say this, some people say this. I'll say, when you introduce yourself to somebody, what do you say? I'm whatever. Then that's what I'm going to use.
No, I completely agree with you. I relied too much on the sports information folks to get that right. And I am just, oh my gosh, I felt so bad.
It happens.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, with that moment of levity there, Tim, thank you so much for being with us. Mike, thank you as always. And that is going to do it here for another edition of Going Nuclear, full-blown coverage of the land, a part of the Fanatical Loves Network, a subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network.